Okay, it's Christmas 2023 and we're about to interview Beema, or Mary, to talk a little bit about her life. Okay, Beema, where were you born and when?
I was born in Detroit, March 12th, 1940.
When you say in Detroit, you mean in the city centre, in a suburb?
No, downtown, I believe.
Downtown?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like in the hospital?
Crittenden Hospital, yeah.
And where did your family live at the time?
I don't know if my mom and dad lived in I think they were just building a house. They were building a house in Garden City. My dad was building it. Little teeny
And where's
house.
your dad from?
My dad's from St. Ignace, Michigan. He lived in the UP most of his life.
Okay.
He went to high school in St. Ignace, but he lived his younger years even farther north.
Well, there's only like 7 people in the UP, so I mean, he mustn't...
Right.
Yeah, and a couple of houses, so... And it must have been pretty tough in winter back then. What year was he born, do you remember?
1914.
1914. Okay, wow, good timing.
Yeah.
And your mum, where's she from?
She's from Cedarville, which is, if you go up to St. Ignace where the bridge is, and you go east, it's about 45 minutes east of the bridge.
The Mackinac Bridge?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's Cedarville, and there's little islands there called Leshenaw.
Hang on, 45 minutes east of the bridge in the UP? Okay.
That's where she grew up, in a little town.
Right, okay. And how did they meet, your parents?
At a dance.
In whereabouts, here or up there?
It was up there. Yeah, both their families lived up there, so yeah, it was up there somewhere. I'm not sure what city, but there was a lot of dance places then in those days where people gathered, and I think that's how they met people.
Yeah.
And yeah.
When my dad was young, he used to go to, in American terms, the equivalent of the Republican Party and the Democrat Party dances, so he could meet people, because he didn't care what politics they had. He was just looking to meet people. And how old were they when they met?
Let's see. I'm not sure how old they were when they met because, let's see. I'm not sure. They were in their late 20s, I think.
Late 20s?
Or middle 20s, somewhere.
Right. And what are your first memories? What are the first things you remember?
First things I remember is being in that little house that my dad built. It was 2-bedroom little house, and we didn't have a bathtub, we had a shower.
Right.
And I remember the drain was a hole like this, and it was about that deep. I don't know why, but as a kid you can remember those things.
Right.
And I always thought it was a treat when I went over to my aunt's house because she had a tub. And I must have been really small because I could swim in the whole thing, you know.
Right.
Stretch out, yeah.
And how long did you live in that house, that first house?
We lived in that until 1950.
So you were about 10.
Yeah, I was 10 when we moved to Redford Township, yeah.
To where, sorry?
Redford Township.
Okay. And how long did you live there?
Till I graduated and left home.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, a long time.
What do you remember about your sister being born?
I don't remember her being born. She's 3 years younger than me.
Oh, only 3. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you remember first about her?
Nothing really. I mean, I just remember being together, playing together.
Right.
But she always seemed a lot younger than me.
3 years, right. Doesn't
Yeah.
seem like much now.
When you're young.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're young, it's a lot of difference. But when you get older, it's none.
Right. Was she a good kid? How different was she to you?
Growing up, she was just she acted younger than I did, you know. Like different things. I remember when I had my first boyfriend, I was 14. Her and her cousin Susie, our cousin Susie, came over and they were teasing me mercifully, mercilessly, yeah, about it. And they kept saying, oh, Tony. Because they were so young, you know, they were just silly.
So what happened with your first boyfriend? What happened to him?
I'm not sure because he was a very good artist. And the senior year of high school, his dad took him out of regular school and sent him downtown to a special school for the end of high school. So I never did really know what happened to him.
Okay. like elementary school and middle school and high school?
I loved all school. I had a really good time in school. I had a good time in high school. I did a lot of things. I had a really great time.
What courses did you focus on when you were at high school?
Well, I did. My dad thought I should be a secretary, so I had to take business courses plus a college prep at the same time. So I was trying to straddle it, you know.
So nobody really thought, you're bright, you can do these things, it's just you're going to be a secretary.
My dad thought that was a good thing to be.
What did your mum say about that?
Nothing.
Really?
Yeah. My mom didn't have, I don't think she completed high school. She came from a family of 9, and they mostly had to work their last years in high school. And she went down to Ohio somewhere, and she was actually working for a family and going to school at the same time.
Okay.
I think she was cooking or cleaning or doing something as a young girl.
Right.
And they all did.
Okay. How old were you when you met Bob?
16.
16.
Yeah.
So you got rid of Tony by then, and
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was gone.
why did you go out with him? What was it about him that appealed to you?
Well, we worked together, and we had a summer job in the drugstore. And I was a soda jerk. In those days, we had like fountains in the drugstores, and we had ice cream and sandwiches, and I made milkshakes and that kind of stuff.
So a CVS, a drugstore, used to sell the equivalent of
It was
milkshakes?
independent drugstores. They weren't a chain.
Okay,
They were little independent places,
right.
and they did a lot of things. And most of them had a little lunch counter of some kind. And I worked there doing that, and I got a job there with one of my friends, and I went down and got a job there. We walked about a mile, I think, to get there every day to go to work in the summer.
And so that's how you met Bob. But
And
how did you enjoy
he was there as a stock boy,
Okay,
and so he was working. And so how we got to go out was we were sitting down having lunch one day at the counter, and one of the guys from next door came over. There was a heating and air conditioning company. I think it's still in business now, the family. And it was called Randazzo. His name was Randazzo. And he sat down with us, and we were having lunch, and he asked me to go out.
Bob did? Right.
That guy, Bill Randazzo, yeah.
Oh, sorry, the Bill did, right.
Yeah. And I said, I can't go then. I said, I'm going out with Bob.
Did Bob know that?
He said, that's right.
Well, that's cool.
He was a little shy, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so when did you know? When did you know for sure that Bob was the guy for you?
Oh, I don't know.
Wasn't instant then? Took a while?
Well, when I went out with him forever, since I was 16. We got married at 19, so yeah. And he was the only person I went out with after that, so I suppose it was just along the way.
Why did you marry him so young? Why not wait till 25 or something?
Yeah, that would have been really good. It depends on your circumstances in life,
I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just...
No, I know.
Yeah.
But I was going to Eastern Michigan University, and I'd saved up all my money from when I was young to go there for a year. And that's about all the money I had.
Right.
And I had no clear path of really what I was going to do. I didn't have any burning passion to be one thing. In those days, you could only be like a teacher or a nurse. That was probably what everybody studied to be a teacher. I didn't really want to be a teacher for sure. And Bob was going there because his parents, that year that he graduated, they retired. And they said bye-bye. He was the last of 11 kids. So they said they waited till he left, till he graduated, and then they just kind of kissed him off and said goodbye. And so...
So he was living at home until then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so his sister happened to live in Ypsilanti at the time with her husband. She had no kids. And so he lived there with her and went to Eastern too.
Right.
So when it came to the end of the year, I don't know, well, he decided he wanted to move to Arizona. His brother lived there, his parents moved there, and his brother lived there. So he went out to visit there. And he decided that's where he wanted to be. So he wanted me to go back with him. So we got married, and the next day after we got married, we flew off with our one box of belongings to Arizona.
What did your parents think about that?
They liked him.
Okay.
They didn't really, I don't think they had a lot of aspirations for their kids in those days,
Right.
I mean, it was not, and my dad was he was cheap. He would never have put anything into education. I don't know, maybe it would have been different. I was a boy. But he didn't for girls. He thought,
What did Sally think about you going away to Arizona?
Well, she thought I was old, She was 16, I was 19. She thought I was old, and I was good to get married,
Well, yeah, before you aged out, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it funny? But now it would be, these days, you wouldn't do that, I somehow kind of wish I'd been older and done more things. But at the time, that was...
Yeah, but I mean, you might have messed with your relationship with Bob if you did that.
I might have, yeah.
Or he might have left without you, so...
Nah, he wouldn't. He might have.
So
yeah.
you think if you said, I'm not going, I don't want to go to Arizona, he would have stayed?
I don't think so, because he didn't really, at 19 you don't have a lot, you don't
Right.
have, he didn't have any job at the time, and when we went to Arizona, we figured we didn't worry about getting a job. We always had a job, and we could always do something.
Right.
And so when we moved out there, we just each got a job and got an apartment, and we stayed with his brother for like a week or two.
Right.
Until we could get ourselves together,
So having lived in, well, what month of the year did you go to Arizona?
August.
Wow. So what did you
Yeah.
think of the difference in climate?
Well, the first thing I realized is when we got off the plane, there was dirt going right up to the road. There was no grass anywhere, It was all just dirt, and I'd never been there before, so it was kind of surprising.
Whereabouts in Arizona was
in
it?
Tucson.
Tucson, right?
Yeah.
Which is south of Phoenix, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about an hour from the border to Mexico, yeah.
Gosh, that must have been different.
It was really different. But when you're in love and you're you're happy.
Well, that's good.
And the heat doesn't really bother you when you're young, not like it is when you're older. We didn't have any air conditioning or anything. We had a swamp cooler, which was they put on the roof, and it's just like a big humidifier up there,
So at least come winter, it would have been a little bit comfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
So what year was this then? This was 59,
Yeah.
60?
59.
59.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's why Patty was born in Tucson.
Right. Yeah. It was so funny because when we were going to have a baby, a couple of years later, we said, "Oh gosh, we should have a house, right?" So we looked for a house, and we weren't even 21 yet. Yeah, we were 20. Well, not quite 21. Yeah, just about 21, I guess, because she was born in December of '61. So yeah, we just moved in shortly before she was born, and we found this. It was a brick house, and it was $13,000.
Wow.
It had a carport like in front, but it was all new. It had all the appliances in there, even a washer and dryer, because we didn't have anything, at all. So we left our apartment, which was nice. We had a nice landlord, Swedish landlord there, and they were a nice old couple. But so we moved in there, and we lived there until she was born, and 5 months, I think, later than that, we moved back to Michigan. So it was kind of lonely there, especially after I wasn't working anymore and I was home.
Oh, right. Right after
Yeah.
Patty was born.
Yeah.
So
And
was
she
that...
had colic, so that was really bad.
Oh. So how well did she sleep at first?
Terrible. For the first 3 months, it was awful. I mean, she was like, I don't know if your kids were colicky like that, but
No.
just constant crying, And then when she turned 3 months old, it was like a light bulb went off, and she was completely good. I mean, just wonderful. She was comfortable. So
Why did you choose to have kids so quick? Why not? Again, not criticizing, but why not wait a few years?
because I always wanted to be a mother, for one thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was very different then, different to today.
It was different times.
Right.
It's not like today.
Yeah.
No.
So, up to leaving for Arizona, what are some of your best memories, or what kind of places did you visit up to the point that you went off with Bob?
Well, I just remember a lot about college. I had a really good time there.
Okay.
You know, I had a good time wherever I went. I had a good time in high school. I had a good time in college. Had a lot of friends. Lived on the 4th floor, and there was no elevator. We had to, I had to go up the stairs every time I went anywhere. And it was funny because it was an all girls at the time. Only girls could be in the dorm, you know, not men couldn't be in there at all. And they had to check in at the desk every time that they wanted to come and visit you. And they couldn't go up to your room.
Right.
They could just pick you up. Different times, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from what you're saying, Patty wasn't an accident, she was planned.
Yeah.
What about Amy? Same thing?
Oh, yeah.
What's the age gap between the two?
Let's see. Patty was born in December of 61 and Amy's October of 66.
Oh, got more years than I
quite a
thought.
bit of time, yeah. I just wanted to be just with Patty for a while.
Right.
And it was nice.
So why stop with Amy? What stopped you from having, like Bob's family, another nine kids?
Well, I don't know. I think they need individual attention, and it's hard when you have a big family to have individual attention. Now I kind of wish that I had more kids.
Oh.
And I thought maybe I was pregnant another time. I had a late period, which I never had late periods ever. I mean, it was just, I knew right away when I was pregnant for Patty. I mean, it just right away. And so I was late, but something must have not been right. So, and then after that, I guess we second thought it. We second guessed it and said, no, I guess this is enough. 2 kids.
Right. 2 little troublemakers.
Yeah, no.
And so, so how do you think your life would have been different if instead of Patty and Amy, you had Patrick and Andrew?
I don't know. It probably would have been a lot different because we wouldn't have done the girly things that we did, you know. We when they were young, we lived in Farmington first, and first we lived with my mom and dad when Patty was young for a couple of years, and Bob went back to school at Wayne State, and I worked part-time for a doctor, and then we moved to Farmington when she was 3, I think. And she was so cute. She ran around in the model home and saying, "This is my room, this is my room," she said. And she was happy, and she had, it was a new neighborhood. There were a lot of little kids all her age. And it was fun. It was nice because she played out with them every day, you know.
Right.
And she was the boss of the neighborhood.
Oh.
She was the boss of the kids. Except she didn't like wind.
She didn't like wind?
She didn't like wind. And she didn't like it at all. And she'd try to hold things down. So when it got too windy, she'd come in.
Okay. And so, was she a good kid?
Oh, yeah. She was so easy. You know, when, of course, we lived with my mom and dad when she was real little, and she got read to so much, you know. She got a lot of adult attention, and she read at a really early age. She was real young. And she was an easy kind of kid. But you had to explain everything to her. She wanted to know the whole picture, what was going on. So if you wanted her to do something, you just let her know the whole story behind it, what was going on. And she was good. I mean, she was just fine. So I thought, with people that couldn't bring up their kids were hard to behaving, not well, I thought, these people just don't know how to do it. And because I was so smug, the next time with Amy, it was an entirely different thing.
So what was Amy like?
It was paybacks.
So how was Amy different?
Well, when she was a baby, she was a wonderful baby. I mean, she probably slept when she was a real young baby from 4 in the afternoon till 7 the next morning.
Damn.
Just that's how long she'd sleep. And she was saving up her energy. Kind of when she was a toddler, she was all over the place. She had so much energy, and she just would run. We visited relatives at the lake, and she'd run from the lake to the road, to the lake to the road, back and forth from the house. And She was the kind of kid that had to try everything there was in the world once. And she had to do everything herself. When she was 3, she had to make her own breakfast. So I had to make sure that the milk and everything was in a pitcher low in the refrigerator so she could do it herself, and everything was accessible because she was doing it herself.
Wow.
That was it, you know.
Right.
But she was full of energy, and I think my sister-in-law didn't like to take care of her. She was kind of intimidated by her because she was so busy. And my mother said, you know, she's, maybe you should correct her or do more. And I said, well, you know, she's not being bad. I said, I'm not breaking her spirit.
Right.
You know, so it's just a different kind of kid. But it was a lot more work.
Right.
Yeah, but she was a good kid too. They're both good kids.
So looking back on it, if you had a chance to do a different kind of career, to have your own career, because Patty and Amy have got their own careers.
Oh, I know, I'm so proud of them.
Yeah, what would you have done, do you think, if you had your own chance?
I don't know, because at the time there weren't the choices and I wasn't exposed to anything. It was different. Their information wasn't out there like it is these days of things you can do, you know? So you didn't know what was available, and you didn't really hear about people doing things, and it wasn't like you just weren't exposed to anything. You didn't. And now women, it's so different. I mean, so probably now I do something like.
Yeah, so with everything you know today, what might you have picked if you could have?
I don't know. Maybe I would have been an archaeologist or something. I don't know.
Wow.
Something like that. That would be kind of fun. Or even once I went to get an eye exam, and that was a long time ago, because now it's so different. But at the time, there was a guy taking photographs, and that was his job. And I had no idea that people could get a job doing photographs and photography in that way. And so there was just things that you didn't know about. I don't know. It wouldn't have been anything in business. I really didn't like business.
What about medical? Both the girls are in the medical field?
Yeah, it could have been something in that field.
So doctor, dentist, nurse,
yeah,
NP?
maybe a therapist or some kind of counseling or something.
Oh, interesting.
That would have been nice.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds like it would have been something I would have liked to have done.
So from the first 10 years or so, what are some of your best memories of stuff you did with Bob? And that we're looking for G-rated stuff, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Well, our first date was at a drive-in movie.
Oh, really?
So that was pretty interesting.
Do you remember what the movie was?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Didn't watch it much.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, had a nice date. But I'd known him for quite a while, you know. So
Right.
It wasn't like I didn't know him at all.
Yeah. So you lived in Arizona, you came back to Michigan. Where else did you go on vacation during those first 10 years or so?
I don't remember. We came back and forth to Michigan a lot. When we were married, you mean? Yeah. We bought a 57 T-Bird. Now, this is how impractical, you are when you're young. It would cost the same as a new car, right? But it was so cool. It was white, and it had a hard top, removable hard top on it.
Mm-hmm.
Cute. Only one seat, though. So when we came back to Michigan, we used to drive it was 24 hours. We'd take a 12 and 12 drive and stay in a motel in the meantime. But there was nowhere to lay down, so he put his head in my lap, and I put my head in his lap when we were driving along. But he always would say, I'd drive and he'd sleep, but then he'd drive and I'd try to sleep, and he'd say, oh, I'm so tired. Which later on, he didn't do that, but that's what he would do then. So we were so tired, I was almost hallucinating when we got into the motel.
So did you put Patty in the footwell or the trunk, or?
She wasn't born then.
Oh.
She wasn't born then.
Okay.
It was just...
But when you came back from Tucson to Michigan after she was born?
Oh, after she was born, we had a 57 Chevy.
Oh, okay.
No, it was a 56. And we had made there was no car seats or anything good in those days, no safety things. So we took a crib mattress and put it in the back seat, so the whole back seat was like where she laid, right? No air conditioning or anything in the car, so it got pretty hot. So she was 5 months old, I think, then, just sitting, rolling over and doing stuff like that. But she was really aware, and she got really hot in the car, I know, because we got in the hotel and she'd go, because it was nice and cool. And then when she woke up in the morning, she was back in the car. You could tell she wasn't too happy.
Okay, so if you'd won the lottery at 25, the two of you, what do you think you might have done differently?
I probably would have gone to school because I did kind of go my whole life. When we moved out to Tucson, he went to the University of Arizona for a little bit, and I went back for a class. I took psychology, and I really enjoyed that class. I would have liked it, but I had a terrible instructor. He just made the whole class so boring. And so I would not go to the class, and I found out he just took the test right from the book, right? So it wasn't worth going to his lectures, which were no good. So I read the book, and I'd go in and take the test, and that's how I took the class, because it wasn't, the instructor can make so much difference in how interesting your class is,
Right, no, absolutely.
When I had one at Eastern, my best instructor was English Lit, and I really liked that because he was so good at.
So later on, you and Bob moved to Florida and to Tennessee. Based on what you know now, were they good decisions to move away from here?
Well, the first time when we moved to Florida, actually, we retired when we were 57, and we bought that condo down in Florida with my mom and dad years before that. So that's how we got to be in Florida, because when they passed away, that was our place too.
So they lived in it first, and then when they passed away, you basically took it over?
Yeah, that's what happened.
Okay.
And so we lived in there, and we lived in Pinckney at the time. We had a condo in Pinckney, and we'd go between the two places. We'd rent out and then let's see.
Sorry, was that your mum and dad or his mum and dad?
My mother and dad.
That's right, his mum and dad were in Arizona.
Yeah, his mother and dad were so much older, He had sisters as old as my mother.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So what did his mum and dad die from?
His mom had cancer. She died at 72. She had breast cancer.
Oh.
And she was a very tough old bird, I'll tell you what. She was the one that ruled the roost in that house. She had her kids all organized, her 11 kids, and they worked in the garden. They had worked on the farm somewhere, but she had them all. She was a tough disciplinarian, she really was. And his dad really didn't have so much to do with it, except that he was the king, and when they sat down to eat, he always had his servings first. I remember that.
What happened to him?
He lived until he was, probably 90, and he got kind of an old dementia type thing, kind of old age dementia.
Right.
It wasn't Alzheimer's, but.
And what happened to your mum and dad?
My mom and dad both had strokes.
Oh.
My mom had a stroke when she lived. She was 9. They both were living in Michigan. We had moved them back from Florida because they couldn't live there anymore. They were just getting too old, and they were probably in their 90s, maybe they were 90, not quite. And so they were living in Independence Village, which is an adult community home. And my dad had a stroke, and then he had recovered, but he couldn't swallow well. He was supposed to have thickened liquids, but he wouldn't listen to what he was supposed to do. He'd run down and have orange juice at the orange juice bar down there. And of course, he'd aspirate it, and it was really bad for him. And he finally ended up, he was in hospice for a few weeks before he died. And I was really disappointed with it was a great hospice facility, but I'd asked them when we I first put them in there, what's your average stay of people here? And they said, oh, well, we don't know, it's just different for everybody. But the average is 2 weeks.
Right.
And I found that out, but I wish they would have told me that in the first place. And I told them to be sure to call me if he took a turn for the worse. But by the time we got there, he had died. He was still warm, but he passed away, so we didn't get to be with him.
Right.
When he died. And my mother...
You brought your mum there at the time?
My mother was, yeah. She was still living in the apartment. So Sally, and then she had a stroke. She had a stroke, was it before my dad died? Yeah. Actually, my mom had a stroke before my dad died. She was paralyzed on one side. But he was already living over in the other place, hospice. And so Sally and I took turns first going 12 hours over there to take care of her. I was bedpan challenged because I didn't know anything about how to take it. So my mother and I had a lot of laughs at me trying to get her in the bedpan. That was fun. And so then she was so afraid of being in a nursing home. She was just terrified of it. So we took her to our house, Bob and I. And she lived with us maybe 6 months, I guess.
Right.
And she really never did regain good control of. At first, she couldn't even sit up. And her arm got a little bit better, but she never could really walk much. And so we had her there. We had help come in during the day, sometimes to take care of her. I think we had just retired, so it must have been not too long after we retired. And Bryce was just born then, our grandson. One time we were supposed to take care of him, but I was over there taking care of my mom every 12 hours. And Amy and Matt were going somewhere, and we were supposed to watch Bryce, so Bob said he'd watch him, but he had to have a babysitter with him to watch him. So he was at our house taking care of him, and Sally and I were over taking care of my mom at the time. But
So when you went on vacation together, you and Bob, over the years, what are some of the best places that you visited?
I don't remember. Let's see. I guess we'd mostly go down to see my mom and dad because they were in Florida, and we'd go down there and with the kids, and we'd go down for Christmas sometimes. And it's once we started our business, we didn't have a lot of time. It was so busy, and when we started in '72, so we had to be there all the time. And we lost a lot of touch with Bob's family because they couldn't really realize they always had parties on the weekend. That was our time that we made our living.
Right.
On the weekend, we were there from 9 in the morning till 2 at night, on Friday and Saturday.
2 at night?
Oh yeah, we had a session Saturday night from 12 to 2 for 16 and over.
Right.
And Patty ran that later on, and that was all good skaters. I mean, they were so good, but that was late hours, That was down the road. And when we first opened, Bob ran every session. He was the DJ at every session because that creates the atmosphere and the mood.
Right.
And you just can't have anybody doing it at first, so.
Well, I was going to ask you how much fun it was to run the skating rink, and why did you build it? What on earth made you think of a roller skating rink?
Bob was in business with his brother. His brother died, and we were trying to decide what to do because that business wasn't really doing anything. And he had been a skater at one time in his life. He said he'd like to do that. And we lived next door to Lynn and his brother. His brother, wife was named Lynn. And her mom and dad lived across the street. We kind of juggled houses now and then. We lived on the lake. And then when her husband died, Bob's brother, they moved in with her to her house. And so we moved across the street, the house they lived in. So we all started that business together, which was a funny thing because the first night that we went in business, it was raining. We didn't know how many people were going to come in. Her mom was the cashier that night, and she was working out of this little cash box. Well, I opened the door at night and there was like a pile of ones like this high on the floor in this little area that, you know, she just couldn't keep track of that quickly. And it was so busy that Lynn and I ended up working in the snack bar, and we couldn't even watch what was going on. We had people from other skating rinks coming in to do presentations. We couldn't even see what was going on.
Right.
So we were...
Who did the books?
Well, her mom did the books first because they had a plumbing company originally. Then we bought them out, and Lynn out, and then I did the books. They didn't have any systems. That was terrible. They didn't have no systems at all. She'd gather all the money together at the end of the day and take it home. There was no accountability for anything, you know. So I made up I went back to Cleary College,
Right.
to study business because I figured I had to know something, what was going on. So I did. That's what I did. And I made up a daily sheet for every day, and each department had its own accountability. And at the end of the day, the cashier would gather all the money from each department and balance out the sheet according to the money. So the bank deposit was ready to go then by the end of the night.
So
And,
back then, almost nobody would use credit cards, right?
no, there was no credit. It was just cash business, which was that you had to have a lot of systems in place when you have a cash business because it's too easy to lose money.
Yes, by lose money you mean people walking off with it.
People walking off with it.
Right.
Yeah. And we had a lot of, I created a system for the skate room in order to, we had to maintain our skates. We had 1,000 pair.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, there had to be, if somebody was in an accident, you had to record what skates, if they wore rental skates, what skates there were that they used, and then you had to have a record of when they were worked on. So whoever worked that night handing out skates would always be working on repairing skates and writing it down so that we had a record of when they were used. Then we had a DJ system that we could account, well, whoever worked up in the DJ booth had a record of all of our records. They were recorded by type of music, what they might be used for, like if you wanted an all skate or a couple skate, or what type of music was. It was also listed by the artist, so that they could have a record right away when somebody requested a song, or they were a new DJ and they didn't know what kind of music to play. They could immediately find that. And we had a record service that every month we'd get all the new songs, and that's how we categorized it, because that record thing would come in, all the new songs. And then we had a snack bar that had all its own stuff happening. We had machines of all kinds. We had all kinds of vending machines. We had game machines with another outside person that we split the money with.
Did you make a lot of money with the roller skating rink? Did you ever feel like, at some point, did you feel like you were actually wealthy?
Yeah, because when we started the business in 1972, it was all organ music, and it was mostly on tape.
Right.
And that's the kind of music we played. Well, disco happened to hit then.
Oh.
So it was the blend of disco music that made it so popular.
What is it?
Perfect for
77 when Saturday Night Fever came out, is that right?
I'm not sure, but it was a perfect music for skating.
Right.
It really was. And so that made it a real boom. I mean, we had some years that we were so busy we could hardly see straight, but that was good, you know. It didn't last, of course, because there's ups and downs of every business and cycles. Right. And now it's kind of cycled out. What happened was, it was an adult thing for most of the time, and then it got younger and younger, and all the younger kids started being popular with the younger kids, but then the older kids didn't want to do it.
So wait a sec, you said the adults, so when you first started, it was adults going along?
Most of the time, yeah.
Huh.
It was an adult business. Well, even years and years ago, I mean, it was an adult skate thing, you know.
So I did it in Australia in the, must have been the late 70s, but it was, at least when I went there, it was all teenagers.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember there being...
Well, teenagers, yeah, and but that's older kids than elementary kids, yeah.
Right, okay.
So did you have disco there?
I don't really remember if they even played music. I mean, they might have, I just don't remember that being the focus.
So Bob was kind of the idea person in those days, and I was the follow-up, catch-up, cleanup person. So I was the one that scheduled all the off times, scheduled all the parties with all the schools. I had a big luncheon in the summer with, I don't know, it was 30 schools, districts, and I'd have the PTO people come to the luncheons, and I'd give out, we went to the national conventions, and we found that somebody told us it was good to give, like we gave tickets to the PTOs where they made all the money from the tickets sales, and we'd give them, the kids could have free admission all summer long. But when the kids came in for free admission, they always spent money everywhere, you know, in the snack bar and all kinds of stuff. And we wouldn't have had a good business probably if we didn't do that, because who wants to go to the skating rink during the day in the summer? And we were always busy.
Right.
But that when we made all the flyers up, Bob printed them all off. We had a printing press, and I made up the flyers. And at the time, there was no computer programs. I had to paste and cut and paste, and I'd have tape lines and stuff, and he'd say, garbage in, garbage out.
But Patty said that Bob could fix like anything.
He could fix anything. He was so good at it. He put the whole sound system in.
Right.
We had huge speakers it was a wonderful sound system, it really was. In fact, it was so good at night, all four of us would lay on the skating floor in the middle of the wooden floor, turn that music up, and you could just feel it boom, boom, booming in your chest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we loved it.
That's good.
Fun. Yeah.
And
they worked there from when they were really young.
I was going to say, well, Patty said she had to, and you already said, did a lot of the DJ work. Did Amy do that too?
I don't know if Amy would, she probably did. I don't remember her doing it so much. But they all worked, and everybody had a job, and they never said they didn't want to do it. They always were happy to do it. It was a fun thing because it was very social. And it was a funny thing because Amy was so young. She was, 6 when we opened up. So I had to know where she was all the time. It was kind of, because she was flitting around all the time. She was always knowing somebody. She was very social. In fact, she knew Kevin before Patty even knew him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so as a young girl, I felt like I had to always know where she was, because you don't know what's going to go on, you know?
Right.
So it was hard running the rink and then always knowing where she was.
Right. So Amy and Patty, they also did skating. How competitive did it get?
Well, they of course they knew nothing about it when they started, but they learned quickly. We had big skating clubs there. We had a big artistic skating club, speed skating club, and we had a lot of teachers that would come off hours. They'd come in before we even opened in the morning, like 5 in the morning, until we opened for session. And they both took lessons. Patty skated dance and figures, and that's how she met Kevin. He was her partner, and they skated together, a dance. And Amy skated singles, which is freestyle, the jumping and the spinning and stuff like that. And when she'd spin, she could do like a back spin where you lay back and spin like that. And she'd get up and she'd have these little red, they call it petechial marks on her eyelids from spinning the centrifugal force.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they were both really good. They were both really good skaters, and it was fun. They skated a lot of competitions. I made all their costumes, and we always went to all the competitions. It was really fun. We had a good time doing that.
So for you, did you ever play sports of any kind?
Oh yeah.
What did you do?
I liked sports a lot. In high school, I used to play basketball and volleyball, and I did synchronized swimming. You know, Title IX wasn't out. We couldn't do competitive sports at our school in high school at all.
Synchronized swimming, the one that you see on TV.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that'd been around a long time.
Oh yeah, it's been around. I couldn't be. They only had boys on the swim team, no girls.
Oh, wow.
So, but I was a lifeguard. I worked as a lifeguard for a little bit.
Right. Wow. Did you ever have to save anyone?
No, but except my girlfriend and I, when we trained together, and I used to help in the classes too with the swimming. The teacher that was running it, and my girlfriend and I, when we were training for the life-saving badge, we fought each other so bad. I mean, we could have saved anybody, but I mean, we were both good swimmers, and we really gave each other heck.
Wow.
By the time we took the exam, it was nothing.
Right. Well, a bit of competition works, huh?
No, yeah.
Why did you decide to sell the skating rink, by the way? Was it just because time had moved on?
I don't know. Bob got so he was involved in politics of the skating rink, of the, called the Rink Operators Association. We had conventions every year, but he was on the board for a long time, off and on, in Michigan and nationally. And then he was president for 1 year. But when he was gone, then I was running all the sessions, and he just kind of lost. I think maybe he got burned out. You know, it's hard to run hundreds of people through there all the time. You know,
Right.
it is. You get really burned out from people, but it's also a very social thing. And when you don't have a lot of time to do other things, you make friends with those people that come in all the time. You know, but so he got tired of it. And it ended up the last year or so, all he would do is come in and pick up the money.
Wow.
And so somebody came along and made us an offer. And I wasn't really ready to go. We were only 57.
Right.
But he wasn't happy.
With
And
the amount or the idea of selling it?
He wasn't happy with running it anymore. And maybe it takes the younger people, you know. And even though I didn't think it wasn't a good time for me, you have to take advantage of those times.
Right.
You have to recognize when something might be and you might have to do something you're not really ready to do. And he was so ready.
So then you got this serendipitous offer. What year was that?
Let's see, 97
97.
is when we sold. Yeah, we'd owned it for 25 years.
Right.
Yeah, and it was the right thing to do. It ended up the right thing to do.
Did you ever think about doing anything else?
Yeah, we both got our builder's license after that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We had to go. You have to go to Lansing to take a test.
Right.
And he was great at it because he could do anything. I mean, he could do anything in it. Anything. I mean, he was good with plumbing. He did electricity. He could do maintenance. He could do all the sound. He could do anything. And so for him, it was nothing. For me, the business part was easy, but I didn't pass it the first time I took it. They wanted things like they're talking about moldings and aluminum. You had to read blueprints, which is all right too, but you had to read to know what kind of aluminum moldings to put up and stuff, and there was a lot of stuff. But the second time I passed it.
Okay.
But there were people up there in Lansing who had taken it so many times. I met people who had taken it like 5-6 times, and so that wasn't bad. But so we thought we'd really maybe flip some stuff, and we went to Florida, and then my mom and dad got bad, and it kind of just got derailed, you know.
Right.
We always worked on our own houses. We always fixed them up, and he always did wonderful jobs on our houses. He made them so nice, and he worked, and he did everybody else's place. He did a lot of stuff at Patty's house, and he did my sister's kitchen. He did her basement, and he just, he was always helping people. He loved helping people.
Right.
He loved doing things for people, and he was the person in the neighborhood. If anything went wrong, they called.
So over the course of his life, over the course of Bob's life, because this will be relevant, could be relevant to Patty and Amy and all the grandkids, what kind of health issues did he have?
It was funny because he had appendicitis when he was in college.
Ouch.
And he was rushed away to the hospital. But he really didn't have anything since then, except that he was really pretty healthy. He was a little bit of a hypochondriac when he was young, but then he was fine after that.
No blood pressure, cholesterol?
No, they were all really good.
Okay.
He had really good blood pressure and cholesterol, always.
Right.
And he didn't have any allergies. He was pretty healthy until he got Alzheimer's and that.
What about you?
I'm good. We all belong to that 23andMe, genetic thing. So Amy and Matt haven't joined it, but Patty and the kids and my sister are in that. And I have a tendency to, according to the test there, to have blood clots maybe.
Oh.
So we have to be careful with that. And that's probably why my mom and dad had strokes, There was somebody in our family real young that I don't really know as a child had a blood clot and died.
Ouch. Right.
But, so...
What about like your blood pressure over, you're 83 now, but
yeah,
when you were younger, good blood pressure, good cholesterol?
it was good. And I had a lot of allergies, and I think a lot of it was his secondhand smoke.
Oh.
That really caused me a lot of problems because there was no smoking in my family. But, he smoked all the time. And so in the car, it was so bad. I'd say, please just don't smoke in the car. And he'd open the little window and say, well, here, I'm venting this out. And he didn't realize how it was either, So I got asthma young, probably. But I didn't get it till after Patty was born. I was really good until then. Had great pregnancies, easy, no problems. And then after that, it's probably when we were living in Farmington that I started having problems breathing. And so I've been working with that most of my life. And after that, I got other things like rheumatoid arthritis, and my blood pressure is not great, but it's not horrible either. Cholesterol and stuff is good. Just got diabetes recently.
Well,
For some
Patty's
reason, but
got
it's under
great
control.
blood pressure.
It's under control.
Right.
It's not anything really.
Okay.
It's always good. So the kids are good.
So, if it were possible and it was easy to do, what are some of the places you'd like to visit over the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I wish I'd gone younger because it's getting harder to get around, Patty and I had a great time on that trip, but it was a little hard for me to navigate those cobblestone streets.
Yeah, we were talking about the trip to Europe, the river cruise from
cruise.
From Germany up into the Netherlands.
Yeah, it was really fun.
So we're talking about the possibility of 2025 going to Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
And where else? Like if you could. I'm just saying, you may not be able to, but if you could, where would you want to go?
Well, we talked about going up to the, like Sweden and those places, the Netherlands. Those would be fun to see. I'd like to go to Italy just because the food's so good,
You haven't been to Italy?
No, I haven't been anywhere over.
Okay.
I've only been on a trip with Patty overseas. I haven't been to, we've
Okay.
been to almost every state. When Bob and I retired, we took a trip from, went through Michigan up, and we went up to Banff, through Canada, came down on the West Coast, came back through Salt Lake City and came back home. It was a month's trip we took.
Right.
In our new conversion van that we got at the time.
Oh, wow.
That was
Okay.
before he left me in Florida that one time.
So Scandinavia, right. So Scandinavia,
Yeah.
Australia.
Uh-huh.
You already seen most of the US. Anywhere else?
I've seen most of the U.S.
Oh, you seen Italy?
I haven't seen the East Coast, Maine and those places.
Okay.
Haven't been there, but most of the other places,
Have you been to DC?
yeah, been there
Okay.
a couple times.
New York?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really beautiful up in Washington, Oregon State. That drive down the coast is really beautiful.
But you, if you went to Salt Lake City, then what, you turned inland after getting south of Portland somewhere?
I'm not sure where we turned. I don't remember. We might have driven down. I think we drove down to California, down that route between San Francisco and California. It was so beautiful. That street, what is it, route?
PCH, Pacific Coast Highway?
Pacific Highway. It's so beautiful.
But I don't think that goes much north of, if north at all, of San Francisco. So if you were on there, that must mean you went...
Maybe it was another trip.
Okay.
It's hard to remember.
Right. So
Yeah.
at some point you went... Did you go all the way from San Francisco to LA or vice
Yeah.
versa?
Yeah, we went to San Francisco once. As I said, we had a convention every year. Every other year we'd go to Vegas, and every other year we'd go to some other spot.
Okay.
We went to Hawaii. That was fun. Girls loved that when we went to Hawaii.
Right.
They had a good time.
Let's see now. What kind of religion or faith did your parents instill in you?
Not a lot. They mostly sent us off by ourselves.
Did they go to church?
Off and on, but my sister and I, they let us do a lot of things that I was surprised at now that I think back at it. We lived on a street that was kind of a U-shaped, and we lived in the bottom of the U, and the main street was up in the top of that U, and there was a bus that would go to a church, and my mother would send us off to that on Sundays. We'd wait up the top of the street and go to the church on that bus and come home. Sally would be crying sometimes. I guess she didn't want to be by herself. She was really young,
Right.
and so they'd send her up with me, so she'd be happy then.
Right. Did you ever skip out of church when you were supposed to go, or were you faithfully going every time?
Well, when we started when we moved to Redford Township, the church was at the corner of one of the streets. We lived off of Plymouth Road, about 2 blocks off of that, and at the end of the street next to us, at Plymouth Road, was another church it was a Lutheran church that I did my confirmation there.
So you're a Catholic?
It was Lutheran.
Oh, Lutheran. Sorry.
Confirmation.
Right.
So I went to confirmation class there
Mm-hmm.
by myself, although I took swimming lessons down at the downtown YMCA, and I'd have to take 2 buses there. Well, my mother would always say, get somebody to go with you, but sometimes people didn't want to go, so I just went myself sometimes, and then she didn't know it, because I'd have to take 2 different buses, and that wasn't really too safe, although in those days it was safer, but I'd have to get out of confirmation early because I had to go to my swimming class, which didn't go over too good.
I know with my girls, when they got to an age where they could get on a bus and go somewhere, they were horrified at the thought that they'd have to take public transport, 2 buses
Oh, really?
to get somewhere. Yeah, or even 1 bus to get to the shopping centre, the shopping mall, so they could work, that kind of thing. They were like, well, why can't you drive me?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you stop what you're doing and drive me? But I think certainly when I was younger too, it was much more common to just say, what's the alternative? You want to get there, you got to get a bus, you got to get a train.
Yeah, that same bus that I took there, my sister and I used to take down to one of the pools, and it was probably about 15, 20 minutes away, and we'd take the bus there just to go swimming at the pool and then take the bus home.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me a joke.
As I told you, I'm really bad at jokes. remember them, but if somebody says it, but I don't remember it enough to tell it. The only thing I can think of right now is a dental joke.
Oh, perfect.
Isn't that perfect? Okay. What do dentists call their x-rays?
Don't know.
Toothpicks.
Oh, God.
So that's my joke.
Okay. Oh, that's good. What were some of the best TV shows you remember from when you were young?
Oh my gosh. Well, I remember when we first got our TV, I was 10 or 11. And I remember we used to watch anything that was on there. The test pattern would come on, and at night they'd sign off with like
Right.
Star Spangled Banner, right?
Oh, really?
And it would be closed down. Yeah, it wasn't on all night. And
Well,
then,
no, I just didn't realise they signed off with the...
yeah, they
anthem.
did.
Right.
They did. And then there'd be a test pattern. That's how you adjust your TV,
Yeah.
as according to how sharp that came in. And I remember at the time, there wasn't a lot of shows. I mean, there was a couple networks, ABC, I think, and CBS. But I remember we used to watch Howdy Doody,
How do
the
you do...
puppet.
Puppet?
Yeah, Kuka
I never
Fran
saw
and
it.
Owlie. Kuka Fran and Owlie, that was one. It was a lady who stood inside next to these puppets that were hand puppets, and she stood next to them, and it was a show like that, Kuka Fran and Owlie.
Wow.
Then there were movies, but I didn't really watch those. I was too busy to watch those, I guess.
Well, I was going to ask you, so you mentioned one TV show, but what were other TV shows that you loved back then? It doesn't mean you'd like them if you watched them today.
We used to watch, Sally and I used to watch Lone Ranger, a Cisco Kid.
A lot of Western stuff.
Yeah,
That was pretty common when I was a kid
it
too.
was pretty common, yeah. It was pretty common. There wasn't a lot of selection, really. There was always, who was that? Ed Sullivan show that had, singing acts. They had the Beatles on one time
Oh,
when the
really?
Beatles came to America.
Right.
But he was such a I don't know how he ever got that job. He was a deadpan person. So, you get a really, really big show, he'd say. And he was just not a good entertainer, but he had this show. And he had a lot of good acts on it. So we'd watch that. And there's a Dinah Shore show that she'd sing, "See the USA in Your Chevrolet."
Right.
Remember
Could
that
you
song?
ever have hosted a show like that?
Hmm?
What if somebody had asked you to host it? Could you have done that?
Probably not back then.
Really?
I probably could when I got older.
Be easy when you've got all these famous people coming on, like you just sort of take a back seat and get
it
them to
would be.
talk.
I was a little shyer when I was younger, till I realized there was not any sense in being shy.
Voila, right. So what are some of your fun TV shows now? Or ones that you've watched over the last few years? They might be finished,
Well, after when Bob died,
Mm-hmm.
I really couldn't watch any sad shows, I didn't want to watch any ones that were tense. So I ended up watching all the Hallmark shows
Right,
because they always had a predictable happy ending.
right.
And you knew it was the end of the show when people kissed. As you said, there was only one plot.
Right, yes.
Yeah, but so I watched that a lot because that's what I had to do, and it was COVID too, so
Right.
I was really isolated, so I watched that.
So if somebody was in good health, do you think you could go out with somebody else?
I thought so a couple years ago, but I don't know now. Maybe I can't imagine being romantic, but as friends, maybe it'd probably be nice to have the company.
Right.
I can't. It's not enough to initiate anything.
Right.
The feeling. I don't mind being alone. I'm good company with myself.
Okay. Well, we get to see you pretty much every week, which is good.
Well, I love seeing you guys. And I don't know what I would do if I didn't have a great family.
Oh,
That would be a whole other thing,
yeah. Well, you've got a lovely family.
I
You've
do
done
have
really
a
well.
lovely
And a bunch of
family.
grandkids.
I know.
And now Josh isn't very far away.
Josh takes such good care of me. I'm so
Yeah.
fortunate.
Well, Lauren will be back next September, and
Yeah,
she'll probably help out too.
yeah.
Did you ever write stories or a journal or a diary?
I'm a really bad writer. Now,
Oh.
Patty was a really good writer. But as far as any paper I wrote in school, a lot of times I would get on there too concise.
Really?
Because I'd get right to the point. I can't embellish.
Well, that's interesting. So, and that also kind of ties in with, there's some people that are really good at telling jokes. They just have a way of
Right.
finding that embellished story
I know. Yeah.
and creating that picture in your mind.
Like
Now, Patty-
Matt. Remember when he was telling those stories
Yes.
about that trip with his brother? Yeah.
Yeah, to go see his
Oh, it
dead
was
brother.
funny.
Yes.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it? It was good.
Well, it sort of helps that pretty much everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
Right. But he was good at telling it.
Yeah, he is good at that.
Yeah.
But then Patty says that she's a terrible teacher because she says, I don't necessarily agree, but she says that she's not very good at explaining things to other people. And if that is true, then it might be like you, where maybe that putting things in other people's mind is the hard part of it rather than knowing it.
I'm a good teacher.
Oh, you are?
I can get down to their level
Okay.
of where it needs to be. Yeah, I can do that. I just can't. I don't even like to read books that embellish too much on things. I don't like descriptions of there the trees were blowing softly and all that. I don't like that.
Interesting. See, Jenny and I both like writing. And Jenny's writing is, my daughter Jenny, her writing is quite different to mine. And I like her style. She sees the world differently in a richer place. Whereas I'm more plot oriented. She sets a scene.
Okay, so she embellishes then.
I don't know if embellish is the right word, but in the context of this conversation, yes.
Yeah. See, I probably wouldn't like that. 'Cause
So if we asked you to write your memoirs, we're going to get like 600-700 words. Is that how it's going to go?
I'm trying to write in that application that Patty sent to me, that Storyworth application.
I don't know about that.
Okay, it's where you write things about different subjects,
Okay.
and I've written one about, I think, Martin Luther King.
Oh.
And I wrote one about my dad. And I'm trying to write more, but I'm trying to wait till I get these pictures from my childhood so I can put them in the book too.
Okay.
Because it's always nice to have pictures along with things. So I'm not good at doing that, but I'm trying to get it done this year. So, it was a nice gift, and it would be a nice thing to have.
Okay. How did you become so good at taking photos?
I don't know. I think you just have an eye, don't you think?
I think picking the setting and what to focus on is important, and a lot of people don't do a good job of that, but you seem to do that very well.
Well, it seems natural. I mean, like even whether you do portrait or landscape, some people just don't ever change. But you just don't, you automatically just change. If you see something you want to take a picture of, you don't think about which orientation you're taking it in. It just happens, don't you think?
Well, you see, in my case, my mum was so spectacularly bad at taking photos that when I would see the photos, it would show me what not to do. And if anything, I think that taught me to think about taking photos, because she would take a snapshot of my brother and I, and the top half or 2/3 of the photo would be sky, and we'd be cut off at the feet. It would never occur to her to try and center us in it. Or like to try and make sure that she got most of it. And so after looking at photos like that, I think maybe that helped me at least take a more accurate kind of photo. But to take an artistic one is a little different. And so maybe that's a different style. I wouldn't necessarily...
I don't even think about it.
Right,
It's just the way it is, yeah. Just what I see, what I think, it just happens, yeah.
So with the photos you do take, because I noticed it the very first time you took a picture of Patty and I, What do you do to edit them? What do you use to edit them?
I'm really using an iPhone edit right now,
Okay, well, it's pretty.
and they're pretty good.
It's pretty sophisticated.
I edit almost every picture that I take.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean right away, because I don't know. That's how I want it saved, you know.
Right.
And it's not that hard. It's just doing it, you know. Mostly cropping, I think, is a big thing.
Yes, I think that's a really big thing.
Yeah.
Cropping to set, you know,
Yeah.
where to create a focus.
And I like people pictures close. I don't like people standing way back in the background. I like to see the people.
Right.
So I tend to take quite close shots of people.
Yeah. Well, that's
If I'm taking a scenery, it's different, but you know.
Right.
Now that I'm getting older, I realize that I used to take a lot of scenery shots, but you know what? They're not important to me anymore. At the time, maybe they were, because maybe I'd enlarge them or do something with them.
Right.
But now it's the family and the people that you love, the pictures of them that's important.
Right. Okay. Well, that's all I've got for now.
Okay.
Give me a closing thought. Say something nice about Patty and nice about Amy.
Well, I'm so lucky to have wonderful daughters. What can I say? As they just take good care of me, and we've always had a close bond. You know, we've always been a very close family, and I think I can remember when Amy was pregnant. She used to, until Kyle was born, she sat on my lap when she came over.
Wow.
And that was unusual.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, she'd call me and say, let's go to Kmart. She said, we'll have a good time. And we did. And
Well, in their own way, they've both been through very, very tough times.
they have
Patty losing Kevin, and Amy losing her husband early on, and then having to not just bring up the kids, but go back to school.
Really hard times.
Yeah.
Really, things that you wouldn't think would happen in your family.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened to other people, you know, like Kevin dying. You just don't expect that kind of a thing to happen in your family. It's horrible.
But it looks like they've both made it through the other side.
They made it through the other
Yeah.
side. Yeah.
You've got some tough little kids there. Well,
Yeah,
little
they're-
kids isn't accurate, but yeah.
Good people.
Mm.
I'm lucky they're really good people.
And of course, both of them have picked excellent partners.
Yes, they have.
All right.
And they're both beautiful.